So very good day to all of you. Today we will talk about high performance liquid chromatography part 3 session. Dear learners, as you are aware, in part 1 and part 2 we have done some basic concepts related to HPLC, that is high performance liquid chromatography, and started about orientation of each component of HPLC instrument. As a part of recapitulation, just have a quick look, that is about different techniques under liquid chromatography, overall processing of column chromatography, what is normal and reverse phase chromatographic technique, what will be elution pattern in normal phase and reverse phase chromatography, then why modification of silica gel is required, why there is a need for high pressure in liquid chromatography. So just try to answer all these questions, why, whatever I am asking, why there is a need for high pressure in liquid chromatography. Then we have seen components of HPLC in that solvent reservoir, what is isocratic elution, gradient elution, and various ways to degas mobile phase during method development. Then type of pumps used in HPLC, what are ideal features of pumps, construction and working of reciprocating pump along with advantages and disadvantages, then syringe or displacement type of pumps, then pneumatic pumps, sample injection system, core part of instrument. In that we have seen rotary sampling valve, what is a loading mode and what is a feeding mode. Then another way to inject sample is slider valve. And now in this session we are talking about columns used in HPLC. As you know, the HPLC column is made up of glass or special quality of stainless steel. Glass columns can bear low pressures, maximum up to 1000 psi. Stainless steel columns can work at higher pressures ranging between 2000 to 6000 psi. The length of the column ranges from 15 to 150 centimeter and the inner diameter is about 2 to 3 mm. The inner diameter of the column is controlled precisely throughout the length of the column. The longer columns are prepared by joining small portions together. The HPLC columns are usually packed with finely divided silica gel, but occasionally alumina and slide, that is a diatomaceous earth, are also employed. The particle size of the stationary phase is in the range of 5 to 10 micrometer, and sometimes the pellicular packing, which consists of small glass beads of about 40 micrometer coated with a 1 to 3 micrometer layer. Whereas in case of pellicular packing, a porous material such as silica gel, alumina, or ion exchange resin is used. And in comparison, porous packing are composed of silica, alumina, or ion exchange resin, but having a diameter of 3 to 10 micrometer. Advantages of pellicular packing is that the higher rate of mass transfer from one phase to the other, because of thin layer of stationary phase, which results in column efficiency. As you know, Van Dimter equation and the parameters responsible for band broadening. So here you can easily correlate to what will be effect of particle size on column efficiency. And the disadvantage of pellicular packing is that they occupy a lot of space in the column and so reduce the loading capacity of column approximately 1/10 that of porous packing. Then stationary phases, as you know, normal phase chromatography, stationary phase is polar in nature. Example are silica, alumina, then cyano, amino or diol terminations on the bonded phase. In case of non-polar, that is the reverse phase, C18 to about C8 terminations on the bonded phase, whereas phenyl and cyano terminations on the bonded phase. Packed particles in a column require frits at the ends of the column to keep the particles in, whereas filtering of samples to prevent clogging with debris. High pressure pumps and check valves are required, and often a guard column to protect the analytical column. So we will see what is the role of pre-column or guard column. Then the mobile phase used in HPLC, that should be compatible with the instrument, that are pumps, seals, fittings, detectors, etc. It must be compatible with the stationary phase. Readily available, often use liters per day, of adequate purity, not too compressible, causes pump or maybe the flow problems, free of gases which cause compressibility problems, and the proper choice of mobile phase among the solvents will depend upon a series of trial and error experiments in which chromatograms are obtained with various solvents and solvent combinations until satisfactory results are obtained. Generally, mobile phase consists of mixture of organic solvents or an aqueous organic mixture or a buffer solution. And you can easily point out mobile phase qualities: have a high purity, easily available at reasonable cost, boiling point above the column temperature, low viscosity, should have low reactivity, that is, should not react with solutes or polymerize in the presence of column packing, should not be miscible with the stationary phase, and should not be flammable or have a toxicity. Then we will move on a next point, that is a pre-column or guard column. As you are observing, just above the analytical column, there is an installation of guard column in assembly of HPLC. So when we are talking about guard column, many HPLC columns possess pre-columns. Pre-column is a broader than the analytical column. It is filled with the stationary phase, which is chemically identical to the stationary phase in an analytical column. Analytical column is what? That is a column which is used for the separation of compounds. Got it? But the particle size of the stationary phase in the pre-column is bigger as compared to that in the analytical column. Pre-column is placed between the pump and the sample injection system. Thus, only the mobile phase is passed through the pre-column, and pre-column is used mainly for two reasons. First one, any impurities, if present in the mobile phase, get adsorbed on the stationary phase present in the pre-column. Thus, these impurities do not pass in analytical column and do not contaminate it. Hence, these impurities do not interfere with the separation of the sample compounds from an analytical column. Another reason for introducing pre-column is that the mobile phase becomes saturated with the stationary phase when it is passed through a pre-column. Hence, when this mobile phase passes through an analytical column, it doesn't strip off the stationary phase from it and helps in keeping the column packing intact. Thus, it protects or guards the structure of an analytical column. And that is the reason a pre-column is also called as a guard column. Thermostat. Most of the times, HPLC is performed at a room temperature and without using a thermostat. However, if a solute takes longer time for its elution from the column, the separation can be carried out at a higher temperature. Water jacketed columns are available commercially when a precise temperature control is desired. Increasing the temperature of the column decreases the retention time of compounds in the column. Detectors are available in a numerous types. Original HPLC detectors were common laboratory instruments such as spectrophotometers. Must be solvent compatible, stable. There are two types of detectors, generally universal, that is respond to all analytes, and analyte specific detectors that respond to specific properties of analytes. Once the solutes are separated from their mixture using chromatographic technique, their presence in the eluate should be detected. And in order to detect the compounds of a mixture, different kinds of detectors are used depending upon the nature of substance. Various detectors used in chromatography work on the basis of ultraviolet absorption, infrared absorption, fluorometry, refractive index determination, conductimetry, mass spectrometry, polarography, and radioactivity. Now let us have a look on ideal features of detectors. They should produce linear response, that is, it should produce higher response for more concentration solutions and lower response for less concentrated solutions. And that is called as a linear response. Then sensitive means what? Detectors should be able to detect very low concentration of solutes. It should be selective. That is, it should be able to detect specific substance only. And non-destructive. Should be non-destructive. That is, should not destroy the sample during its detection. And there are four types of detectors used in HPLC. These are bulk property detectors, solute property detectors, multipurpose detectors, and electrochemical detectors. In bulk property detector, these detectors measure the difference in some physical property of the solute present in the mobile phase in comparison to the individual mobile phase. An example of such kind of the detectors, that is bulk property, are refractive index detectors and conductivity detectors. Whereas in case of solute property detector, these detectors critically respond to a particular physical or chemical characteristics of the solute, which should be ideally and absolutely independent of the mobile phase being used. But complete independence of the mobile phase is hardly to be seen. However, signal discrimination is good enough to enable distinctly measurable experimental procedures with solvent changes, such as a gradient illusion. An example of solid property detectors are UV detectors and fluorescence detectors. In multipurpose detectors, these detectors combines UV absorption, fluorescence, and conductometric detection. All kind of analytical capabilities can be recorded over here. An example of such kind of the detector is having Perkin-Elmer system, that is a 3D system. They have a such kind of multipurpose detector. In electrochemical detectors, these detectors in HPLC usually refers to either amperometric or coulometric, that is all electrochemical method of analysis. Specifically measure the current associated with the reduction or oxidation of solutes, and such kind of the detectors are called as electrochemical detectors. So now today we will see some selected kind of detectors. First of all, we will try to see ultraviolet visible detector, that is construction, working, advantages and disadvantages. In construction, the most common detectors for HPLC are based upon the absorption of UV or visible radiation. And for this purpose, the spectrophotometers and photometers are made use of. The spectrophotometric detectors are considerably more versatile than the photometric detectors because the radiation corresponding to all the wavelengths of interest, that is corresponding to the absorption peaks of the sample components, can be used in this. Whereas the photometric detectors make use of limited number of wavelengths. The photometers employ the wavelengths of 254 and 280 nanometer from the mercury source, at which most of the organic compounds show absorption. In case of construction, a UV visible detector consists of a chamber which is made up of two compartments having quartz window in order to allow the passage of UV radiation through them. A source for UV visible radiation is placed in front of the chamber. A monochromator and two phototubes are placed in the path of the transmitted beams for the measurement of the signal produced by the blank and an eluted solute. The signals from the two phototubes are fed to one more phototube to get the net signal over here. An amplifier for the amplification of the signal produced, and a recorder for recording a chromatogram. So clear the construction? One more time, just have a look on this diagram. Now we will try to see working. Plain mobile phase is allowed to pass through one compartment, and an eluate coming out from the column is continuously passed through another compartment from this sample in. UV or visible radiation is passed through the quartz window in both the compartments. When there is a no solute present in the eluate, both the compartments contain the plain mobile phase. Hence, the absorption of UV or visible radiation by the solutions in two compartments is the same. And this produces some current in the circuit, which can be adjusted to a zero value. In presence of some solute in the eluate, because of the absorption of UV or visible radiation by an organic compound in the eluate, the net signal produced differs. And this difference in the signal is due to the presence of an organic compound in the eluate. The magnitude of this difference depends on the actual concentration of compound in the eluate. The detector is calibrated so as to provide a linear response over a broad concentration range. The signal is then amplified and recorded to provide the chromatogram. In advantages, we can easily say the UV visible detector is an universal detector if wavelengths such as 254 and 280 nanometer, at which most of the organic compounds show absorbance, are used. Thus, it can be used for the detection of many organic compounds. Fabrication of this detector is very easy. It can be made selective so as to detect the presence of specific organic compounds, and if the wavelength of maximum absorption of that compound is used for the detection. In disadvantage, since it is an universal detector, the presence of certain impurities in the eluate may also contribute to the signal of an analyte. Infrared detector, like UV visible radiation, IR radiation can also be used for detecting various organic compounds, and the IR detector is similar in a construction to the UV visible detector. As you are observing over here, source of IR radiation, then filter playing role as a monochromator, slit for attenuation of radiation, here sample holder, then heat detector, as detectors used in IR based on heat mechanism, that is bolometer, Gole cell, then amplifier, and later on recorder. Then differential refractive index detector, as shown in figure. Differential refractive index detector consists of light source, that is a slit, and a lens to make the beams coming out from the source parallel. Isn't it? From this light source, there is a lens, there is a mirror, and the slit, so that radiations will come in a very parallel way. A glass chamber which is divided into two compartments by a glass plate mounted at an angle. This is a glass plate. Is kept in the path of radiation. A plane mirror is kept beyond the glass chamber for reflecting the beam of radiation passing through the glass chamber. A photosensitive surface is used to collect the reflected beam, which liberates electrons and generate the current so as to produce the quantitative signal. In working of DRID, that is differential refractive index detector, the plane mobile phase is continuously passed through the compartment of a glass chamber. An eluate coming out from the column is passed through another compartment of glass chamber. If no fraction gets eluted out from the column, the eluate is simply the plane mobile phase, and hence both the compartments of glass chamber contain the same solution. Since there is no difference in the refractive index of solutions in the two compartments, both the refracted beams bend to the same extent and fall at the same point on the photosensitive surface. This generates the standing current in the circuit, which can be taken as a reference value. When some solute is eluted out from the column, one compartment in the glass chamber contains the plane mobile phase and another compartment contains mobile phase along with an eluted solute. These two solutions differ in the refractive indices. Under this situation, the bending of the refracted beams from the plane mobile phase and the eluate occurs to a different extent, and hence they do not fall at the same point on the photoelectric surface. As a effect, the output signal varies. The difference in the output signal is because of the presence of a solute in the eluate, and it depends on the actual concentration of solute in the eluate. The electric signal is then amplified and recorded to provide chromatogram. The refractive index of a solution depends on the concentration of solute in it. The higher the concentration of solute, the higher is the refractive index of a solution, and the greater is the response from the detector. So in advantages, a refractive index detector is very easy to fabricate. It is an universal detector which can be used for the detection of any kind of solute. And in disadvantage, we can quote, refractive index detector is general rather than selective, and hence responds to the presence of all compounds, including impurities present in the eluent. It is less sensitive compared to the other detectors used in HPLC. Move on, flame ionization detector. As name suggests, flame ionization detector makes use of an oven, wherein a flame is produced by burning hydrogen gas in presence of oxygen or air. A continuously moving wire loop is provided to transport a portion of the eluate in the furnace. As you are observing over here, two electrodes, that is anode, that is the part A, and the cathode, that is the C, are placed on either side of the flame. A fixed potential difference is maintained across the two electrodes with the help of series of batteries. An amplifier and a recorder are included in the circuit for recording chromatograms. So as a working pattern, a continuously moving wire loop transports a portion of the eluate coming out from the column into the furnace, where the solvent is evaporated first. Most organic compounds get pyrolyzed at the temperature provided by hydrogen air or maybe hydrogen oxygen flame. Certain compounds are able to form ions after pyrolysis. These ions are attracted either towards an anode or towards a cathode, depending on the charge present in them. The attraction of ions by the electrode results in the change in the potential difference across the electrodes, which in turn results in the change in the current in the circuit. The electrical resistance of a flame is very high as 10 raised to 12 ohm, and the resulting current is therefore very minute. In order to measure small magnitudes of current accurately, an electrometer must be employed. The volatile products which are able to form ions after pyrolysis are detected by the ionization detector. Ionization of carbon compound is poorly understood, although it is known that the number of ions produced is roughly proportional to the number of reduced carbon atoms in the flame. The functional groups such as carbonyl, hydroxyl, and the amino produce fewer ions or none at all during pyrolysis, and therefore the change in the current is not much when these species are introduced in the flame. Hence, their detection by flame ionization detector is difficult. Their advantages: flame ionization detector can detect minute quantities of solutes, and hence it is the most sensitive and one of the most popular detectors. It produces linear response over a wide range of concentration. Whereas in disadvantage, hydrogen flame ionization detector is more complicated and more expensive than the other detectors. And the biggest disadvantage of this detector is that it is a destructive of the sample. Dear learners, in hyphenated techniques, or maybe here, we can use detectors based on mass spectrometry also. A mass spectrometer has also been employed as a sensitive and a specific detector in a chromatography. A stainless steel or a polyamide belt is used to pass the eluate in an IR evaporator to remove most of the solvent. The vapor of the solvent is sucked by using vacuum. Then the solute in the solid state is allowed to pass through the ion source of mass spectrometer. And here the sample is flash, vaporized and ionized. The ions are then identified in the mass spectrum based on their mass to charge ratios. The intensity of the peaks in the mass spectrum provides idea about the concentration of the solutes in the eluate, and then mass to charge values help in the identification of fractions. As a part of spectroscopy, we know mass spectroscopy instrumentations, or when you will learn about mass spectroscopy, at that time you will get an idea on what basis mass to charge ratio is important for separation of analyte. And in advantages of detectors based on mass spectrometry, we can say it is a very sensitive and specific detector, and detection limits with these detectors are as low, maybe around 0.2 to 1 nanogram. And in disadvantage, this is a very expensive method for the detection of solutes. So dear learners, that's all from HPLC part. Hope you understood the basic fundamental or the mechanism during HPLC separation, theory behind separation of mixture on HPLC, components of HPLC, and detectors used in HPLC. So we will conclude this session with quote of the day. Always end the day with a positive thought, no matter how hard things were. Tomorrow's a fresh opportunity to make it better. So thank you very much.